A Cold War relic just got turned into one of America's most dangerous bombers again. Right now, 45 B-1B Lancers are being pushed through a transformation that almost nobody saw coming. While China and Russia are racing like crazy to build faster and deadlier hypersonic weapons, the US Air Force looked at an aging bomber that was supposed to be on its way out and basically said, "Wait, this thing still has smoke left." And they were not wrong. Because this old beast is being turned into a missile-carrying monster. We're talking about a bomber that could carry up to 36 missiles, and not just regular missiles either. Some of those weapons could be hypersonic strike missiles, the kind that move at more than 5 times the speed of sound. That is not a normal upgrade. That is the kind of firepower that can make entire defense networks start sweating. The Pentagon may call it a stopgap measure, like it's just some temporary fix until the shiny new B-21 Raider takes over. But military analysts are looking at this and calling it something way bigger. A game changer and America's rivals? Best believe they are not laughing. They are watching this closely because this is not just another maintenance program. This is a retired legend getting dragged back into the spotlight with a whole new set of teeth. The B-1B Lancer was supposed to fade out. The plan was already written. The dates were already being discussed. The newer and stealthier B-21 Raider was supposed to come in during the mid-2030s and slowly take over the job. But then something unexpected happened. Engineers realized this 40-year-old bomber could do something no other aircraft in the American arsenal could match at this scale. And just like that, the conversation around American air power changed completely. Welcome to Jet Insight. What you're about to hear is not some internet rumor or military fanfiction. The Air Force budget for fiscal year 2026 includes $50 million specifically for something called the External Heavy Stores Pylon Program. Now that sounds like dry government language, but what it really means is simple. The B-1B is being prepared to carry weapons on the outside of its fuselage again. Weapons it was not originally expected to carry in this role. Weapons big enough, fast enough, and dangerous enough to completely change the way this bomber is used. Before this upgrade, the Lancer could carry 24 missiles internally. That was already serious. But now, with external pylons added back into the picture, that number could jump to 36. And the wild part is, those extra missiles are not just for show. They could include hypersonic weapons, meaning one aircraft could suddenly carry the kind of strike package that would make enemy commanders rethink their whole defense plan. And if you still think America builds the best military hardware in the world, type proud in the comments below. Now let's talk about why this matters so much. The B-1B earned its nickname, the Bone, because pilots shortened B-1 into B-1, then basically turned it into bone. And for decades, this aircraft was one of America's hardest working conventional bombers. It was not sitting around looking pretty in a hangar. It was flying real missions, dropping real ordnance, and carrying the weight of American air campaigns across multiple conflicts. The Bone flew combat missions over Iraq in 1998. It spent years pounding Taliban positions in Afghanistan. It launched missiles at Syrian targets in 2018. And just last year, B-1Bs flew a brutal 34-hour mission from Dyess Air Force Base in Texas to strike targets in Iraq and Syria without even landing. That is not a museum piece. That is a machine that has been worked, stretched, pushed, and still refuses to disappear. But here is the part nobody expected. While all the attention was going to the new B-21 stealth bomber, Boeing engineers were quietly working on something called Load Adaptable Modular Pylons, or LAMP. And these are not just basic weapons racks bolted under the plane. These are advanced mounting systems designed to carry heavy payloads while keeping the aircraft stable, safe, and combat ready. Each of these pylons can handle around 7,500 pounds of payload. The B-1B already had 6 external hardpoints, but they had been sealed up decades ago after arms control agreements ended the aircraft's nuclear mission. Those hardpoints were basically sleeping. Now they are being reopened, and that changes everything. Just picture what this means. A single B-1B taking off from Guam could carry 12 long-range anti-ship missiles on external pylons, while still carrying 24 more weapons inside its internal bomb bays. That is one bomber showing up with enough firepower to threaten an entire carrier battle group. One aircraft, 36 missiles, each one reaching hundreds of miles. That is not just power, that is pressure. And once hypersonic weapons enter the picture, the math gets even crazier. The Air Force has tested the AGM-183A air-launched rapid response weapon, a missile designed to hit speeds above Mach 5. Current testing has suggested that a B-1B could carry up to 31 of these weapons using a mix of internal bomb bays and external pylons. 31 hypersonic missiles on one aircraft is not a small detail. That is the kind of saturation attack most air defense systems were never built to handle. Before we go deeper, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing, and it costs you nothing. But it helps the channel a lot. Now, to understand why this transformation is so huge, you have to understand where the B-1B came from. Back in 1955, the Air Force wanted a bomber that could combine the range and payload of the B-52 with the speed of a newer supersonic aircraft. That idea eventually led to the B-1A, which first flew in December 1974. But the program immediately became controversial because it was expensive, ambitious, and risky. President Carter canceled the program in 1977, saying the cost was too high. Then President Reagan brought it back in 1981, but with changes. The new version, the B-1B, traded some top speed for better survivability. Its maximum speed dropped from Mach 2.2 to Mach 1.25, but its radar cross-section became much smaller, making it harder to detect compared to earlier heavy bombers. The payload capacity also became ridiculous. The B-1B could carry up to 75,000 pounds, making it the heaviest lifting bomber in the US inventory. And those variable sweep wings gave it crazy flexibility. Wings forward for better range. Wings swept back for high-speed, low-altitude runs. It was built to move fast, carry heavy, and punch deep into enemy territory. Between 1985 and 1988, 100 B-1Bs rolled off the production line. During the final years of the Cold War, they became a major part of America's strategic bomber force. Each one was capable of carrying 24 nuclear-tipped cruise missiles. But then the Soviet Union collapsed, arms control agreements reshaped the mission, and everything changed. By the mid-1990s, the B-1B's nuclear role was completely removed. It was no longer a nuclear bomber. It became a conventional strike aircraft. And weirdly enough, that move may have saved it. While the B-2 Spirit stayed focused on strategic nuclear missions, the B-1B became the bomber America could actually use over and over again in regional wars. Its huge payload meant it could stay over a battlefield for hours, ready to support troops with precision-guided bombs. Special Operations Forces in Afghanistan valued having a B-1B overhead because it meant instant firepower whenever things got ugly. But years of hard combat flying came with a price. The hot, dusty environments of Iraq and Afghanistan were brutal on the aircraft. Every flight hour demanded massive maintenance. Some reports put it at around 48 maintenance hours for every 1 hour in the air. That is nasty. Some B-1Bs were spending more time being repaired than actually flying. So by 2021, the Air Force retired 17 of the least serviceable airframes and planned to keep the remaining fleet alive only until the B-21 arrived in larger numbers. But then Boeing had a different idea. Instead of just keeping the B-1B alive, what if they made it more dangerous? What if this aircraft was not just an old bomber waiting for retirement, but a platform that could carry the next generation of weapons? That is where the upgrade changed everything. Engineers realized the external hardpoints could be reactivated. These were not random attachment spots. The B-1B had originally been designed with external carriage in mind, and each pylon location had serious structural potential. With modern materials and computer-aided design, Boeing could create new pylons that carried even heavier weapons while meeting strict aerodynamic and safety standards. But the hardware was only half the battle. The software had to catch up too. The B-1B's stores management system needed updates so the aircraft could recognize the new pylon stations. Weapon release profiles had to be calculated for external carriage. Safety systems had to be programmed to prevent accidental launches or unsafe flight conditions. This was not just strap missiles on and go. This was a full engineering puzzle. All of that work served one major purpose: create a platform that could test and eventually carry hypersonic weapons. The B-52 fleet is already loaded down with modernization work, including new engines, new radar, and new communication systems. The Air Force could not just dump hypersonic testing on top of all that without creating more strain. The B-1B gave them another option. But hypersonics are not the only prize here. The LAMP pylons also allow the B-1B to carry the long-range anti-ship missile. And that matters a lot because this weapon addresses one of the biggest problems facing the US military in the Pacific. This is what the Air Force calls an air-launched capability gap against high-threat maritime targets. Now, in normal human language, that means one thing. China has been building a massive navy, and the US needs a way to hit those ships from far away before American pilots or carrier groups get dragged into the danger zone. That is where the B-1B suddenly becomes a serious problem for anybody on the other side. Loaded up with long-range anti-ship missiles, and now this old bomber turns into a ship-killing platform that can operate hundreds of miles away from enemy air defenses. It does not need to fly directly over the target. It does not need to put itself in the middle of the fight. It can stay back, launch from distance, and still threaten some of the most protected warships on the planet. And the Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missile gets a major boost too. Right now, a B-1B can carry 24 JASSM missiles internally. Add 12 more on those external pylons, and suddenly you are looking at a bomber that can suppress an entire integrated air defense network by itself. No waiting around for escort aircraft, no needing someone else to soften up the target first. One B-1B can show up with 36 JASSMER missiles, each with a range of nearly 600 miles, creating the kind of saturation attack that can overwhelm even advanced enemy defenses. So why does this matter right now? Because the timing is everything. The Pentagon is facing what military planners call the bomber bathtub. That basically means as older B-1Bs and B-2s retire, the number of available bombers starts dropping before the B-21 Raider arrives in large enough numbers to replace them. And that creates a dangerous gap. America could end up with fewer bombers at the exact moment the world is getting more unstable. China is the most obvious challenge. Beijing has been flying bomber patrols around Taiwan. The People's Liberation Army Navy already operates multiple aircraft carriers, with more being built. Chinese anti-ship ballistic missiles are designed to threaten US carrier strike groups across the Western Pacific. So, in that kind of environment, long-range strike power is not just useful. It becomes absolutely necessary. Russia's invasion of Ukraine showed another brutal reality about modern war. Precision weapons get used fast. Ammunition stockpiles do not last forever. And the ability to deliver heavy firepower quickly, accurately, and in large numbers can shape the entire battlefield. A single B-1B carrying 36 standoff missiles brings more combat power than many countries have in their entire air force. That is not an exaggeration. That is the level of firepower this aircraft is being pushed toward. The cost factor matters too, because wars are not just fought with weapons. They are fought with budgets. Flying a B-1B costs around $63,000 per flight hour. That is less than the B-52 at around $72,000, and way less than the B-2, which can cost around $135,000 per flight hour. For the cost of one B-2 sortie, you could fly roughly 2 B-1B missions. And with these new pylons, those B-1Bs could deliver even more total firepower. Now, critics argue the money should just go toward buying more B-21 Raiders instead. And on the surface, that sounds reasonable. Why keep upgrading an old bomber when you can invest in the next generation? But that argument misses a key point. The B-21 production line is still ramping up. Even if Congress threw more money at the program tomorrow, Northrop Grumman could not magically deliver a massive bomber fleet overnight. The industrial capacity is not there yet. That is why upgrading the B-1B makes sense. It gives the Air Force real combat capability now while the B-21 fleet slowly grows. It is not about choosing the old bomber over the new one. It is about not leaving a dangerous gap in the middle. And for military veterans, aviation fans, and anyone who respects the people who fly and maintain these machines, this is exactly the kind of story worth watching closely. And if you respect the men and women who keep these incredible aircraft flying, take 1 second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep bringing you deeper breakdowns like this, and you already know the comment section is where the real aviation debates go down. Now let's talk about the global response, because other countries are definitely paying attention. China's state media has already published analysis about the B-1B upgrades, and they are especially focused on the hypersonic side of it. Beijing understands what this means. If US bombers can launch Mach 5+ weapons from 1,000 miles away, Chinese air defenses are suddenly facing a nightmare problem. Russia has similar concerns. Even though Moscow has its own hypersonic programs, Russian air defense networks were not really designed for mass bomber attacks using advanced standoff weapons. During the Cold War, Soviet planners expected nuclear exchanges and massive escalation, not long conventional campaigns where one bomber could launch dozens of precision missiles from outside the danger zone. A B-1B carrying 36 weapons creates a type of threat their old defensive architecture struggles to answer. America's allies benefit from this too. Japan, South Korea, and Australia all face growing pressure from Chinese military expansion. So, knowing that US bombers can deliver overwhelming firepower from safe standoff ranges gives those allies reassurance. It sends a message that the United States still has the ability to respond across the Pacific without needing to place every asset directly in the danger zone. So what comes next? The current plan is to keep around 44 to 45 B-1Bs in operational service through at least 2032, and possibly as far as 2036. That alone says a lot. This aircraft was supposed to be heading toward retirement, but now the Air Force is finding ways to squeeze more life, more power, and more relevance out of it. The external heavy stores pylon program will continue across multiple fiscal years. The early money goes toward wind tunnel testing, software work, and making sure the aircraft can safely carry these new external loads. Later budgets will cover actual pylon production and integration onto operational aircraft. After that comes flight testing, including live weapon releases. By the late 2020s, combat-coded B-1Bs could be regularly flying with full external weapons loads. At the same time, hypersonic weapon development is moving alongside the aircraft upgrades. The Air Force has been working on systems like ARRW, the boost glide weapon, and HACM, the air-breathing hypersonic cruise missile. Both are being shaped with B-1B compatibility in mind. Testing these weapons on the Lancer also reduces pressure on the already overloaded B-52 test fleet and gives the Air Force valuable data from a faster, more flexible bomber platform. So yes, the bone is getting new teeth, and those teeth are sharper than America's rivals expected. A bomber designed in the 1970s and built in the 1980s just became relevant again for the 2030s and possibly beyond. The B-1B Lancer is proof that sometimes smart upgrades can turn an aircraft everyone thought was aging out into something terrifyingly useful again. While the world kept staring at stealth bombers and next-generation systems, American engineers found a way to take an existing asset and turn it into a strategic problem for every rival watching from across the map. 45 bombers, up to 36 missiles each. That is more than 1,600 weapons that could be delivered from standoff range, with very little warning. The math is simple, but the implications are massive. And that is what makes this story so serious. This is not just about an old bomber surviving a few more years. It is about America finding a way to keep pressure on its enemies while the next generation of air power is still being built. And now I want to hear from you. Do you think upgrading the B-1B is a smart move, or should the US put every dollar into the B-21 Raider instead? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this one is definitely worth debating. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and stay locked in. Because the future of American air power is still being written, and you do not want to miss what comes next.